and I had somebody say, is there any way I can handwrite this? I was like, I don't grade handwritten stuff. Sorry. You're going to see why, because my handwriting's so bad. I need to print it for us. Oh, there we go. Cool. I just printed something, so don't let me forget. So I printed it. Morning, Health Center.
Good morning.
Oh, I heard them. Could you hear that? Whoever spoke, your voice is just high enough that it comes out fairly clearly. I hope they get all the new equipment installed. It certainly would help. But there's some kind of delay. I'm not sure what. All right, we're going to talk about narratives. Well, let me give it a couple minutes to make sure Woman Union has a chance to get in. I'll keep glancing up there because by the time I write the text message, it may change. No, but they're not there. Be sure and grab one of those pages, okay? Remind me of your name.
Caleb.
Caleb, okay.
Set the wrong one.
What?
Set the wrong.
Oh, well, that's okay. It's just now 8. So there's Wellman. Okay, awesome. And there's Last Buddy. Last Buddy's not supposed to be in here. Morning, Haley. You're not supposed to be in this class. This is really interesting. Caleb, it's spelled with a K on this, but in Blackboard it's spelled with a C. Am I right? Did they make that mistake? Hold on. Let me open this. We're gonna go over some narrative stuff super quick and talk about possible topics if we can get through all that. Open up. Start reading. Come on.
Ms. Thompson, this is the class I'm usually in.
Hold on. I could not hear you very well. Say that again.
Ms. Thompson, this is Hallie, and this is the class I'm usually in.
You're in Tuesday, Thursday?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I thought you were in Monday, Wednesday. That's how crazy I am. Yeah, you are, okay, crazy me. All right, hey, I'm forgetting I'm not sure what day of the week it is. Okay, yeah, if you'll just be sure and kind of scoot over so, because we have one more person supposed to come in. Is that Mason or Reed?
Reed.
Okay, can't remember. It's been a couple of days, all right. So, let's go in, first things first, you have, one of the pages you have is a PowerPoint. It's, it looks like an outline, all right? So we're gonna go over the PowerPoint very quickly. Oh. All right, so, here we go. And most of you people know who this is? Do y'all know who this is, this actor? He's played God in a movie, or? Oh, that's okay. His name's Morgan Freeman.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got that wonderful, you know, if you ever had anybody, you needed someone to narrate your biography, he would be the person you might choose, okay? So storytelling is kind of what this is about. And really, in our minds, normally a narrative is telling a story. So the purpose of a narrative is to tell a story. There are different ways to tell stories, though. And one of them is typically, you know, from the beginning to the end of the story, but you can also tell a story with body paragraphs that cover 3 main points. So I expect to get 2 different kinds of papers on this, but one of the things to realize, oh, that's tiny. Narrative essays are organized in chronological order. They tell a story in the order that the events happen. And it's on the one that looks like an outline. Did you not get?
I got all 3.
Okay, so it should be the shortest one, I think. Like any other essay, the narrative essay should begin with an introductory paragraph, which will set up the event being, you know, discussed or told. The paragraph will be followed by a minimum of 3 paragraphs. Technically, I'm going to tell you, you can do this paper in 3 total paragraphs. An introduction, a long body that has the whole story, and a conclusion. So I'm going to change that up a little bit. Let me see, can I write on this? Let's see, so. Oh yeah, but it could be minimum of 3 paragraphs total. I'll phrase it that way, okay? You can't see that red hardly, can you? Always end your essay with a memorable and strong concluding paragraph. If you're gonna, when you write your narrative, I would say end it with whatever lesson you learned from the event that happened in your life. It's like the moral of the story. Were you guys told to do that on the STAR test when you were writing? If you can end the conclusion with something, a lesson that's learned, it kind of brings an end. That's why STAR writing is not good. And always remember to stick to one point throughout the essay. Each paragraph should flow smoothly. That's how you tell a narrative. Okay. Transitions are important. And one of the things I've noticed I've graded about 10 paragraphs. I was trying to get all of those introductory discussion, extra credit discussion boards done. I've got all those graded. Remember, in addition to you guys, I have 93 people in another class, and they also did introductory discussion boards. So, you know, it actually takes a little while to grade. And I took a couple of days off. So I'm going to be honest, all right? But you need transitions, and narrative essays might be first, next, then, and finally, don't go second. Don't go first, second, third, fourth. Don't do that. The first thing we did, the second thing we did, it's great if you're writing in middle school or elementary, but we're in college now. If you're telling a narrative, you should be just, well, after a short period of time, there's a transition, right? Just get me doing my hands. I'm a hand talker, sorry. And the viewpoint, this is the one essay that you can write in this class where you can use I, because you're the person telling the story, and most likely it's going to be about you. I'll just toss that out there. All other essays in this class need to be written from third person. One of the things I have noticed on the paragraphs is that in the last sentence that you summed up, you wanted to go, so if you ever want to do this, if you ever listen to jazz, you could really enjoy it. That's what you wrote about, correct? I've graded yours. Okay, yours is the only one in this class I've graded. Remember, the reader is not part of your story. So if you're telling a story and all of a sudden you switch to you've now put the reader in the story, and the reader doesn't know what happened. You see what I'm talking about? So don't use second person. That's what that's called. Don't use you or your or y'all or whatever. Omit that from your writing in academics, okay? And let's see, and that's basically what this slide says. But the fact that you can write a personal story, and one of the best stories I've ever gotten was written by a student from No Trees, Texas. And he was writing about how he and a bunch of his buddies had decided they were gonna go hunting, and it's in the wintertime, and one of their buddies who lived in town said, hey, we can go hunt on my uncle's ranch. They were gonna go hunt wild hogs, okay? So they get out, and this was like 5 pages. It was very well written, but it was, a little too long. And he's sitting there going, we're on the pickup truck, and we're smoking some weed and drinking some Jack. Yeah, this is what he wrote about. It was atmosphere, I guess. And he said, and they get out there, and they shoot something, and it's a deer. So first off, now they've killed something in the wrong season and all that stuff. And then a car drives up, and it's the game warden. And they're not on this kid's uncle's property. They're on somebody else's property hunting illegally. So they have to go, he hauls them into town. Can't be that many places to go in No Trees, Texas, I'm pretty sure. And they've got a $10,000 fine they have to pay. And they didn't, that was for the illegal hunting. They didn't get charged with anything about the other 2 illegal things they were doing while they were in high school. But the moral of the story was never believe what this kid tells you, because he always lies. So that was his moral. So you can, it was an interesting story, is all I have to say. I wish I could find a copy of it to share, but dadgummit, it's lost in the past of all the classes I've taught. Okay, so you can have some fun with this assignment. And that's all. That's the PowerPoint right there. Woo, that was quick and fast, wasn't it? Down and dirty. All right, so you've also got 5 tips to writing a successful narrative. Discard. Okay, I was discarding my inked notations. So let's look at the 5 tips for writing a good narrative essay. I found this online. I thought, hey, it's pretty cool. That's why you see me giving credit, so that I'm not plagiarizing. So if you look what it says here, you're thinking most of the time in your life you're not going to be writing narratives unless you're writing a posting on Facebook or whatever you post to, because I know Facebook is for old people. I get that. I understand. Because most of my friends on it are old, my age or older, okay? So instead of just summing up for the readers, it becomes more interesting when you can tell a story. Have you got that family member who can relate something that happened in the past, and they really make it interesting? You like listening to them talk. Even though you've heard the story 10 or 15 times before, they still do a pretty good job of telling it. Okay. What it does, though, is it presents an experience that you've given, and it allows readers, others, to draw their conclusions about it. So it subtly guides the reader rather than battering them with many rhetorical essays. But look at these basic ideas. Clarity. Be specific. That's the other thing I've noticed on the paragraphs is somebody will say, you'll write these very vague statements. Not you, okay. You were very specific, almost too specific sometimes, okay. But I had somebody who was writing about, they were writing about something that they enjoyed doing, and they just, or they were just very vague terms like, well, I like to do this in the winter. It's just been, you need to be specific. So clarity means being clear. Don't make your reader guess. I've had several people who wrote about family members, and I never got names. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean you have to give me everybody's name. You don't have to give every member of the family, but you know what I'm saying? So be specific. And you need to distribute your ideas evenly. Although I've never been to the races before, I was very excited to behold them, yet also somewhat nervous because of the type of people who go there. So you've got, this is kind of it looks like a great sentence. It's got a lot of words in it. And how many of you have ever used the word behold? Don't use it in your writing for me, okay? If you wouldn't normally say it, don't write to impress the teacher with your vocabulary, because that's when you most frequently will make mistakes and choose the wrong word, okay? So look at this. I've never been to a horse race. I was excited to go, but also a little nervous since I wasn't sure about the people at the track. How much more clear is that to the reader than what was in the previous one? It's just subtle things you can say that make it obvious what the point you're trying to get across, okay? Don't describe each and every one of your own movements. Now, on the narrative, somebody always wants to write about their trip, their vacation. And they'll go, well, we flew to the Bahamas and had a great vacation when I was 14 years old. And then they spend half of the paper talking about driving the car to get to the airport, getting on the plane. We began to get on the plane. You begin to get on the plane? Just get on the frickin' plane, okay? You know what I'm saying? We got on our flight, arrived at our destination. Don't spend all your time, when you could be describing and giving me some wonderful pictures in my mind, talking about your flight. You know, that's, you know, if the whole point is that you got to go to the Bahamas, tell me about the Bahamas. And don't tell me about the drive from the airport. You know what I'm saying? Be clear. So focus on what's important in what you're trying to say when you give a narrative, all right? Don't get hung up on details. I've got a good friend I've known for 30 years, and she will stop and obsess about giving you the correct detail when she's telling a story. You know, just get to the point. That's all we want. That's clarity. So look at this. As I went in the door, I turned and saw a TV. I looked around and saw posters on the wall. As I went further in, I noticed everyone was watching MASH. Okay. First off, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 eyes in this paper. In those, 4 sentences, 3 sentences? That's too many eyes. Okay? But look at the improved one. It says, I immediately noticed the posters on the wall, though everyone else's eyes were focused on the TV playing MASH. It said the exact same thing, didn't it? Do I need to know that there's, you know, every movement that you make, be careful when you're talking about narrative. Look, avoid the second person narrative. An important part of the narrative essay is that you're the one who experienced it. The reader did not. So if you use you, the reader doesn't know what happened. How can I be part of your story? This is not a hyperlinked. That was a big trend in the 90s when the internet was really beginning to take off, the late 90s. Everybody wanted to do these hyperlinked stories so that you could click on something and the reader became an active participant. That's not what we're doing here. You're telling the story. You know what happened. Don't use you or your. And writing in the present tense is okay, however. If you want to write it like it just happened, that's cool. You don't have to try to make it past tense. And the other thing, just don't begin to do stuff. Because if I began to get dressed. Well, if you begin to get dressed, then you have to finish getting dressed, correct? Think about it. So if you say, I began to get dressed, the next thing should be, after I had my clothes on, you see what I'm saying? So just say, I got dressed. Just, do we need to know that you got dressed? I'm assuming most of the times you don't go out naked. So remember, focus on what's important. Here we go. To interest the reader, dynamic word choice is key. Avoid sounding clinical. Avoid using some slang or idioms, turns of phrase you would use in speech. I did have people fall on the ever infamous cliche. You know, in about, out of the first ones I graded, I had at least 3 people use cliche. And you're like, don't do that. The problem with cliche, does that float your boat? You know, those kind of things like that, is that they don't bring anything new to the writing. They're overused words, is what it is. So look at this. I am presented an array of unpleasant photos in which many casualties are shown after automobile accidents. Improved. They showed me a book stuffed with gruesome pictures of people who've been in car wrecks. See? Not too clinical. Because you're not giving testimony at a trial. You're writing something a little bit more interesting. Limit references. You really don't want to be quoting any other sources in here, like where they say here, when I first saw the comic book fans jumping up and down, I thought as they would, Lord, what fools these mortals be. They're quoting from Neil Gaiman. Anybody hear of it's a book called Good Omens, but it became a Netflix series. It's about an angel and a devil, not the devil, but one of the demons in hell, and how it shows them through the course of human history and how they've become friends. It's very interesting. It's a slightly sacrilegious, but it's pretty cool. It's kind of funny to watch. So, be careful. So, improve. The fans jump up and down. When I first saw this, I wondered what they were doing. And my mind conjured a quote from Shakespeare that Neil Gaiman used in his Sandman. So there's some errors in punctuation already, I'm going to tell you. Lord, what fools these mortals be. However, I watched a bit longer and realized the company's spokesmodels were throwing free merchandise. The fans wanted to get the most from their day at the convention. How many of you have gone to an athletic event and they're tossing T-shirts and everybody's fighting for them, right? They're giving away. We went to the Tech women's volleyball game Saturday afternoon. We went to the right one because the one that night they got beat 3-0 pretty quick, but we got to see them win. But they were giving away free cookies and people will act crazy. So it just makes me think of that. Do the high schools throw T-shirts at football games anymore? Some, depends on the high school? Okay. All right. The narrative essay is a keen rhetorical tool because it allows the readers to draw their own conclusions, but falling into traps will deprive it of its effectiveness. So be careful with your writing. By avoiding those errors, you can subtly guide your reader in your desired direction. Now, this is okay because I'm giving instructions. First you do this, second you do this. Instructions, it's okay to use you. But you are not instructing the reader on how to take a trip to the Bahamas, okay? Or listen to jazz, or meet your family, all right? So, we got one more here. It's about intros and conclusions. It's really brief and quick. I'm going to have to do something here because the font is so small. I'm going to have to blow up the font so you can see it better. Okay. Okay. The opening paragraphs of an essay should start with several sentences that attract the reader's attention. So remember, we just did a paragraph. Now we're writing an essay, which means you have to have at least an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. That's all I'm requiring on the narrative. It should advance the central idea or thesis that will be developed in the essay. And frequently, a thesis gives a plan of development that consists of the major points that will be examined in that essay. And they must be listed in the order in which they appear in the essay. So like on the paragraph where you had the second or third sentences, I've actually had somebody give me the list in the fourth sentence. Might have been you. You gave me 2 lists. Have you looked at your grade yet?
No.
Okay, don't. Okay. You got to be careful about when you give a list. The first time you give a list, I expect you to do that. You talked about the genres of jazz, and then after that, you give 3 genres of jazz and say there's more, but then you say something else, and then you give me your 3 favorite artists that you liked. So you gave me 2 lists. You sent a conflicting message to the reader when you did that. Okay, so if you say I'm going to talk about, you can always give a narrative and say I'm going to talk about my trip to the Bahamas. We had strange things happen on the airplane when we went scuba diving and at the final meal of the trip. Do you see how now I've told you in the narrative I'm only going to focus on 3 parts of that narrative? And that's the way to do it, okay? And it allows you to organize it a little more understandably that way. So a thesis gives a plan of development. Be careful. It's just like that second or third sentence. You have to follow that order. You can't. So when you begin something, you got to end it too. An example, winter is my favorite season because I like the weather, the holidays, and the sports. The body paragraphs will fall in the order of weathers, holidays, and sports. So, or last winter, that's almost a thesis for a compare and contrast paper, by the way. So, in some cases, development part of the thesis is omitted. Education can be a key to socioeconomic security. It can be a key. It doesn't say it is the key. It says it can be. This thesis states a central idea for the essay, but doesn't show how the essay will be developed. But you know that everything that's going to be listed is either going to be a socioeconomic, so it can deal with society, social issues, or economic issues. And begin with the broad general statement of your topic and narrow it down to your thesis statement. That's the intro. Start with an idea or situation that is the opposite of the one you will develop. These are possible ways to do introductions. Don't begin with a broad general statement and then start with an idea. Don't do all of these together. Pick one. And explain the importance of your topic to the reader. It's going to be hard in the narrative to explain the importance of the topic to the reader. It's going to be more like you kind of tickle our fancy. Get us hooked into it, okay? Use an anecdote, an incident, or a brief story. That works great when you're talking about something else, but if you're telling a story, you don't want to tell one story in the introduction and a different story in the body. So watch out for that. So I would say put an X. Hold on, let's see if I can get this to work. It wasn't happy. I see it's not happy with me right now. I can't do it. But I would say no. Put a big no next to use an anecdote. Or use a quotation. Now, if you use a quotation, and I know a lot of I will say that I've had in the past, I can tell when students have been taught by an instructor, when they get into my classes, to use a quote. And it was very funny because I have all those kids from Cooper, and they all would give a quote in their introduction. All of them gave a quote. And you're just like, okay. And it's all right. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you give a quote, you have to tell me who said it. I don't need a works cited on the narrative. But if you're going to say, like Neil Gaiman said that about, whatever the quote was. I don't even remember. It's been only 2 minutes and I've forgotten it. Okay. But just say, according to author Neil Gaiman, blah, 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 blah. This is important because for me, You know, you gotta show how the quotation connects. So you can use the quotation, but I gotta know who said it. And if you give me a quotation, I will check it to make sure that they said it, okay? Well, I just have to. And so the conclusions often is just a summary of the essay. You can go over the main points, give the thesis or restate the thesis in new words, and then give the main supporting points. But with your narrative, not as likely. I don't know what I did to mess that up. All right, the writer often presents a concluding thought about the subject of the paper. So remember when I said, give the lesson that you learned about life from your narrative? That's what you can give. Include a thought-provoking quotation. Yep. I don't think I'd use a quotation in the beginning and then repeat it in the end. I don't think I'd use one there and a different one in there. Use two different ones, one in the introduction, one in the conclusion. And end with a prediction or recommendation. Again, these are more for academic argumentative or something. So that is introductions and conclusion. And this is actually from pages 7 through 10 and 94 through 100 in the Langham textbook. It might be a slightly different edition, okay? So what I want to do is look at, in the narrative chapter, there are on page 239 to 240, that's where I need to go, okay. In the textbook, they give you some quotes that you could come from. So this would be a quote you could use in your introduction, and they already tell you who it's by. So here they are. We have a high pollen account here for Lubbock, Texas. Ragweed, grass, and chenopause. What are chenopause? I have no idea. Okay, if you never have a dream, you'll never have a dream come true. That's just a popular saying. I've never heard that till this book, okay? Before I got married, I had 6 theories about bringing up children. Now I have 6 children and no theories. Most of you probably won't be writing that. You said you've got, how old is your?
I got 4 kids.
4 kids? Well, you're close. Okay. There are some things you learn best in calm and some in storm. That's a good one if you want to write a narrative about something that's happened in your life. Okay. Success is 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. Thomas Edison. Have you ever been successful at something? That sounds depressing. Don't say that. Hey, you graduated from high school.
Yeah.
There's a success. See, you didn't think you had one. You got your driver's license, didn't you? Okay. There's 2. You got a job. There's 3. You're like, yeah, but they all suck, okay? So, I'm sorry. No. Hey, I teach. What can we say? No. But when I was teaching, one of the main things one of those quotes was, those who can't teach. That's a very negative image of education, isn't it? Okay. Here we go. What a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive by Walter Scott. Any of you ever, I'm just going to throw out a possibility. Have you ever told your parents you were spending the night with a friend and that's not what you did? Oh, look at that grin on your face, Jackie. She's done it. She's done it, guys. And your friend did the same thing with their parents? Yeah. Okay, my daughter did it to me. She also got caught. Okay. You know, it's one of those deals. Now, there were 3 of them that did it. I'm not sure what they did on them. They didn't end up in jail, that's the main thing. Or pregnant, one or the other. So when you have daughters, that's what you have to worry about, right? You have any daughters, Rodney?
I have 1.
Okay, how old is she, the oldest or youngest? She's 10. Oh, you got a few years to worry about that, don't you? He just doesn't look old enough, does he? You just don't. Sorry, you look young. Okay, there's a sucker born every minute. Oh, that could have been a great quote for that guy from No Trees about their hunting trip, okay? We lie loudest when we lie to ourselves. Have you ever lied to yourself? You know, I think how often, people don't like to accept blame. Okay, here we go. All marriages are happy. It's the living together afterward that causes all the trouble. Yeah, the marriage is just the ceremony. Oh, that's the wedding, actually. Okay. Hoping and praying are easier, but do not produce as good results as hard work, by Andy Rooney. Oh, this is even better. A little learning is a dangerous thing, Alexander Pope. Interesting author from British literature. He's more recent than Shakespeare. he wrote an interesting thing called The Rape of the Lock. It's about a guy playing a card game with a woman, and he wants a lock of her hair. That's what you're talking about. It's not like he raped somebody, okay? He wants to win the card game so he can have a lock of her hair. And British men had strange things going on. Nothing is as good as it seems beforehand, right? Do you know what, can y'all paraphrase that to what it means? Nothing is as good as it seems beforehand? Have you ever heard the phrase, the grass is always greener on the other side? Isn't that what that sounds like? You know, how your dog thinks it's better my dogs say, well, whatever the other one has in its bowl has to be better than what they have. They have the exact same thing. They want what's in the other one's bowl. Life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. When I got to the end of my long journey in life, I realized I was the architect of my own destiny. Well, you guys some of you are at the beginning of your journeys, really. Just a little way in for Rodney. I'm kind of maybe 2/3 of the way through. You know, I'm 2/3 of the way to 100, so I would like to make it to 100. A fool and his money are soon parted. Anybody ever spent their money? You know, you get it and you just have to have that new pair of shoes, tennis shoes, bright white, whatever. I don't know. What are the big shoes right now? And look, you were looking at shoes. It's like, because I can remember when North Face was the big brand for coats. Is it still popular? But if you go out and buy shoes now, like everybody had to have white Crocs for a while, right? Okay. Well, you know, I am old enough that we didn't have brand names. But when my kids first were growing up, that's when you started having to have the brands. Michael Jordan tennis shoes first came out. And we're talking back in the 80s, having to spend $100 on a pair of tennis shoes. Took a lot longer to make that $100 then than it does now. Okay. Jabot jeans, it was a French brand, so I'm like, I'm not spending $80 on a pair of jeans for a 10-year-old girl. You've ruined my life, Mom. Okay. All right. So you know what I'm saying. But there are brands that people have to have now. You know, and you think I'd pay better attention. If I look at your clothes, what you have, what's your hoodie? Is it a brand or just have an image on it?
No, it's one of my friends who committed suicide like a couple months ago.
Oh, so it's for, that's a nice way to remember your friend.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that happened.
I agree.
Okay. Reed, do you have anything on yours?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a Michael Jordan brand.
It's a Michael Jordan brand. He's still making money off of his name. Does it have the split legs like he's gonna? Yeah. Yeah, that's the logo. That's what everybody had to have. What about you, Jackie? Ralph Lauren, okay. You know, it's like the big double C's for Coach, right? Gucci. Yeah, you know, I mean, $300 for a purse? Honestly, people. That's too much. I've been watching game shows lately. That would be The Price is Right, correct? Okay, just make a note that Mason's not here. All right, so let's see what this one from Arthur Ashe. Do you guys know who Arthur Ashe is? He was a African-American, first really well-known African-American tennis player who developed AIDS from a blood transfusion, I believe. Yeah, pretty tragic. From what we get, we can make a living. What we give, however, makes a life. That's an interesting one. So what you do for others is important. Let's see, no matter how lovesick a woman is, she shouldn't take the first pill that comes along. That's the same as you got to kiss a lot of frogs before you meet your prince. Same thing, right? Fear not those who argue, but those who dodge. Trust in Allah, but tie your camel. Did y'all get that one? If you don't tie your camel, what's going to happen? It'll probably wander off. Yeah. So, yeah, you can, you know, trust in God, but don't be stupid, okay? You know, there's things that, you know, we're expected to use. You can use one of the above statements. or if you can find the one you like better. But I do have some other other noteworthy things. What that gives you is a place to start with, an idea to do with. And actually, if you find a quote you like, that's almost like asking you to do a ready writing competition, because that's what students who compete in ready writing do. They're given a quote like this, and then they have to write an essay about it. But there are more topics, okay? Let me go find them. I have this wonderful long list that might give you an idea of a place to start. I gotta go back to last fall. That's spring, not gonna find anything there. I have to scroll through a lot of stuff. I apologize. Oh, I probably need to get some stuff out of there. Okay. Here we go. So I've looked in the textbook, and now we're actually expanding to some places to go. Now, when you do this one, I would ask that you don't write narrative as your title on the essay when you do it. Give me the topic, all right? So, and these might help. So the first topic is when I got lost. Have you ever gotten lost? Yeah, particularly driving. And now, when you've got GPS, sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's not. You know what I'm saying? My favorite meal? That sounds like a question I gave you on that day. If I could go back in time, what would you change? This doesn't literally mean going back to the dinosaur ages. If you could go back in time in your life. I saw the weirdest thing. I've got all of my grandsons now have their own cell phones. So I get on my phone yesterday, and my son's boy has sent me a picture of a cat and a salamander. 2 separate pictures. Why? Were they, I'm like, okay, I saw the weirdest thing. If the salamander was being eaten by the cat or the other way around, that might have been more interesting, but okay. An animal I would be. I don't know about that one. Let's see if I can get this to do draw. No, I've screwed up Word and I can't do that anymore. Okay. I would say probably no on 5. Something I wish I had. Let's see, if I could only see one color, I don't know. Don't write that narrative. If I could change one thing about me, what would you change? Well, I would be taller, but then I'd be taller than my husband. My husband's short. Okay. A place I'd like to live. This is an interesting one. A lot of kids seem to like this one. My secret place. Oh goodness, I hate that when that happens. Have y'all noticed that's happening when you're in Word? Yeah, you get this whole. I'm in a Word document. Why do I want to look at that? Okay. Does anybody else have the jumping cursor in Word? When I'm writing and I stop for a second, my cursor will jump up or down somewhere different. Okay, just me. Something nobody knows about me. There's one. Something nobody knows about you. I used at Tech, when I was a TA at Tech in the English department there, I would have kids write the most revealing things that had happened in their lives. Like one girl wrote about how nervous she was. Her narrative was about how she had to twirl the fire baton at halftime of the football game. Interesting. Then I had another student who wrote about being date raped. And this would be back in the mid-90s. And that was before people talked about it. Yeah. It was like, okay. And I'm just like, you would write to somebody you don't know about something that intimate? It kind of shocked me. But now people do it all the time, don't they? Let's see. I'd like to invent this. If I could be somebody else for a day, I don't know, being Pat Mahomes might be fun, but not during a football game, okay? Because I don't want to get tackled. Let's see. The most interesting animal encounter? Oh, you should hear my story about the wild turkey that attacked my dogs. In our neighborhood in Lubbock, this turkey attacked our dogs. I had a Chihuahua. This is when I had a Chihuahua and my black lab. And I'm walking my dogs, because you walk dogs. That's what you do in the town, okay? And when you walk dogs, what do dogs do? They poop. So I have bags, and I pick it up. I don't leave my dogs crap for other people to have to deal with. And so we're walking down. This is, it's cold because I'm wearing a coat. And I can see the turkey coming from me. It had come in. It had moved into our neighborhood probably 12, 13 years ago. And it would live in the neighborhood. And it comes walking down. I'm on a cul-de-sac, and I'm walking this way, and it's walking towards me. And so I move over to the other side of the street to get away from it, and it crosses the street and tries to jump on my black lab's back. And this is a big dog. And so I'm swinging the bag of poop at it. My chihuahua's running underneath the nearest car. And I got crap everywhere. So, but it gave a new definition to Angry Birds, because Angry Birds was out. So there's, and what did I learn? Don't swing a bag of poop at anything, because it just flies everywhere. Okay, you won't believe I saw this, my hero. Okay, if you're gonna write about my hero, and that's a decent narrative, it's probably gonna be most likely a family member, maybe a good friend, somebody you know. Be sure and give me their name, okay? Even if it's your grandfather and you call him Gramps, still give me his name. My grandfather, Rodney Webster the first, or what, you know what I'm saying, okay? All right, you can do that. My favorite superpower, oh, it sounds almost like I had that on my introductory discussion board, doesn't it? By the way, if you've done the introductory discussion board and have not responded to 3 other people, you haven't got a grade on it, because I can't get to it. You have to complete the assignment to get the credit. If I were invisible, if I were president, I don't know. If I could have any pet, if I had $1 million, kids like that topic, what would you do with it? Well, I'd pay off my school loans, I'd buy a car, I'd go traveling. You see how you could write that narrative? If I were to inherit or win $1 million, what would I do? First off, you'd start off with about $600,000 because of the taxes, okay? So you don't have as much as you think. And I will load this into Blackboard for you later on, so you have this to look at. A job I hate to do. Oh, a TV show I would make up. Oh, interesting. A job I would hate to do. The most beautiful thing. My parents were right. When they told you not to do something, have you discovered that yet? My parents were right. My favorite toy ever? I must have used this as my list to come up with my discussion board questions. A hard lesson learned, doesn't that sound like my parents were right? Those are very similar, aren't they? If I had my own planet, then you'd be Mormon, okay? All right. My greatest accomplishment? Mine was scoring 29 points in a JV basketball game. 29. I'm 5'3". It's pretty good. The other team was pretty bad. My lucky charm, if I could make school rules, what would you change? Guys could have earrings, their hair could be all over. The bigger your school, the more likely the hair is much more lenient. Have you noticed that? The larger the district, they're not so picky about stuff. The smaller the district, yeah, we want everybody to look the same. So, okay. How embarrassing. Have you ever said anything? My favorite thing to do is ask somebody when the baby's due, and they're not pregnant. I stopped doing that about 30 years ago. Well, one of them, I was taking a group of kids out to the library at SPC back in 1997, and this sweet woman behind that, she looked like she was about 6 months pregnant. She had a tumor. It was like, oh yeah, that convinced me to shut my mouth on that topic. You got to have a baby on board for me to ask these days, okay? Yeah. My favorite gadget, don't describe your dadgum stupid cell phone to me. I know what they look like, okay? The hardest thing I ever had to do, if I could live in another century, why would I want to go back to when there's no running water and indoor bathrooms, okay? This made me laugh. A secret place. I think it's on there twice. If I could invent a holiday, my secret talent, okay, the year 2050, that's only 2026? What year am I in? It's only 29 years away. Less than that. 28 and a half. Less than that. Well, 2050, you know how old I'd be? 96. That's old. But how old would you be in 29 years? Wow. Like, I'd be old. Are you sitting there thinking how old you'd be? When I was a little kid, 5 things I can't live without. People like to do that one. 5 things I would give up. When I was a little kid, something that disappeared. The best news I ever received, my most memorable trip, first day at college. Okay, that's a good topic. And I'm referring to when I went back to get certified. I was going to Tech to get certified. I decided I wanted to be a teacher instead of sit at home with my kids. Wow, crazy me. I'm still sitting with kids. I go into the UC. It's had so many different names at Tech. I go in, I'm going to get something to drink, so I go through the line and I grab something to eat. And as I'm checking out, I knock my drink over. I'm a 30-some-odd-year-old woman spilling my drink. That's what little kids do. It's embarrassing, okay? First day at college, first day back at college. The moment of a journey through hell, that's a toughie. The biggest misunderstanding, a difficult decision, the trip of my dreams. You can see a lot of these are similar. The day I decided to change my life. I have gotten this paper from students who have written about how they decided to stop using drugs, how they got divorced, things like that. So I have gotten some interesting ones with that one. My dad's influence on me. Could be positive, could be negative. My first day at work. Why I started my own charity project? Well, if you started one, write about it, because I'd like to hear about it, okay? My career plan. If you're going to write that narrative, don't say, I will begin to study nursing. Study nursing, okay? Why I always find time to be with my family. Okay. Don't tell me your hero is your mom because she's always there for you. I'm just going to tell you, if you're going to write something like that, show, don't tell. Show a time when
Your
somebody
conference
was
is
there for you. I don't
scheduled
care
to
if
end
you're
in
your
2
best friend
minutes.
forever. Do you see what I'm talking about? Don't just say they're always there for me. They support me when I need it. Show them doing that. Tell me an event where they did what you're talking about. Okay. My first car. Everybody go, I assume you all have cars out here. I don't know about the kids at the schools, but maybe not you guys. Learning it hard way. There must need to be a V in there. The hard way. My baby teaches me. This is referring to an infant, not your boyfriend, girlfriend. Okay. What I love about my city. Oh, Haley, how much could you write about Laz Buddy? Not much, right? You know everybody. Let's just be honest. It's tiny. Okay. My mom's childhood. European Road Trip sounds like a really interesting movie, and it's already been made. Okay. My crazy wedding day, I got that paper this summer from someone. Meeting Mr. Fisher. Who's Mr. Fisher? The Old Creek. When I realized I'm not a kid anymore. That's kind of interesting. Because sometimes I act very childish. We were playing, this is a heads up. Anybody play Among Us on your phones?
Oh.
Why are you laughing? Well, I know it's old. It actually has been out for a while. But my 9-year-old grandson wanted everybody to play Among Us on our phones. So I downloaded it and we played. Then they decided we were going to, this is Saturday during the tech game. Then they decided we were going to play in person. So we've got 2 kids, my son, his
Your
wife,
conference
my
is
daughter,
now
and
over.
me. My
Goodbye.
husband's sitting in the chair with one of our dogs. And so you either have C for crewman or I for imposter, and we're playing it in the house. So everybody has to draw this card and see what they are, because we just played it up. Is time up? That went off too soon. Sorry. But so we would walk around, and everybody would walk around other people like this. You wouldn't put your back to anyone so they couldn't stab you in the back. That was hilarious. It was a lot of fun. It's much more fun to play like that than it is to try to navigate those corridors. This happened last year. Connection went down. It's not supposed to shut off for another. Okay. Let's see what we've got. Seeing what happens when that happens. It kicks out of the screen it's on. Be my audience. Driving class. Growing up in New York. Any of you grow up in New York? But if you grew up in a small town, you could write about that. I grew up in El Dorado, Texas, for the last 7 years of my growing up. Following a dream, my sister, a disastrous date. Oh, my Lord. You guys don't date. Like, when I was in college, people would fix you up on blind dates. Okay? So my blind date, and in the dorms at Tech, they have phones downstairs, so when they got there, they would call your room, and your room number was basically your phone number, and say, hey, I'm downstairs, and I was like, what do you look like? So I go down, and he's my height. He looks like a little gnome. Looks like a little gnome. I don't remember his name. We go to some fraternity party, and so he's just sitting there drinking, and so I'm wandering around, because I knew a lot of people at the party, meeting him, and, we leave, and he says, when he took me to the door at the dorm, he said, I'm sorry you didn't have a good time, and I said, so am I. And that was, I was a bit of I can be one. So, but we had blind dates when I was growing up, okay? Where you got to meet them. Y'all don't do that anymore, do you? Yeah. It's kind of, and, well, in fact, when I was growing up, see, we're looking at, what is it, a disastrous day. When I was growing up, you could go out with one guy on Friday night, and you go out with a different guy on Saturday night. It didn't mean you're a hoe, right? But isn't that what it means right now? If you're going, it doesn't mean you're going out and doing stuff you shouldn't be doing with them. You see where I'm at? But that's what dating was about. He would go out with different people to get to know them. So, I didn't go to her funeral. The perfect encounter, the strangest job interview, my first flight ever. I flew from Seattle, Washington to Anchorage, Alaska on military transport. My dad had been sent over there. And I broke the seatbelt. But it was military transport, so there weren't even that many seats in it because they were carrying a bunch of stuff. The lie that destroyed one life, how I made it in L.A. Pretty much don't think anybody's going to be writing that one. And surviving a tornado. I can't write about surviving a tornado, but I was in Alaska, in Anchorage, in 1964 when they were struck by an 8.1 earthquake, which has now been cycled up to almost 9, I think, because they've modified the scale a little bit. Pretty devastating. So if you've been through anything kind of issue like that, you can do it. I'm going to take this list and I will put it in your class right now. We're almost out of time. Hopefully they'll fix that issue. So you need to look over chapters 3 and chapters 4 in the ebook. You have a quiz Friday over those two. If you miss the quiz, I don't know how this happened, but some people miss the quiz. And they would, they were going, Saturday, the quiz isn't there. Well, of course it's not there. We're supposed to take the quiz on Friday. It doesn't stay open through Saturday, so you can take it late. So I'll have to figure out what I'm going to do, because they were like, I got into the quiz, but it wasn't there. And if you're in the quiz and you get kicked out, when you go back in, it's going to show that you took it. So that's the kind of thing you need to send me course messages on. So let's see. We're going to talk about, we're going to do some work over run-ons and comma splices, because I am seeing those. And you'll have those quizzes on Friday, and then you have an outline to turn in. I'll have copies that I'll send to the facilitators, and I'll bring copies for you. That's actually what I printed in the room already down there, so. But we're not going to talk about it. Have a great day. See y'all Thursday, right? Yeah. Let me save this very quickly. And I will put it in week 2. For some reason, when I text, it defaults the next time it'll go to the voice thing, and so it loads everything I'm in on my message area. Because I text them about the connection going down. Okay. Okay, this is y'all's class, course content. So I'm putting the topic list. It'll be underneath the narrative outline when you go into week 2. Gotta close it out. Okay, it's in there now. Gotta copy it into all my other classes. So just so you can see where it is. It's right underneath the copy of the narrative outline. $41, yeah. Submit. Copy. 201. If you'll grab one of each of those pages, okay? And tell me your name? Alexandra. That's okay. I don't know if I'm looking at the right one. Yeah, that's where you sat last time. Cool. I'm gonna go grab some papers very quickly. I will see you guys Thursday. Haley, be sure and check your email. I sent you a question. If she's there. And now it's still on at 8:52. So grab one of each one of those pages.
Your conference is scheduled to end in 2 minutes.
You'll get one of each of these. I had a guy who had to sit back in the back. All right. Hey, Cal, did you forget to turn something in on Friday?
Yeah,
Okay.
I turned it in.
Okay, you've turned it in since then? Okay. I had, okay, the connection's still on, okay.
Your conference is
You already
now
did the
over.
papers there?
Goodbye.
Okay. We are still connected. It's a bit long. I just haven't gone in to check